Me. Isn't that amazing? I am so proud of the work they've done, and so I'm going to ask them questions I already know the answers to because I was part of this process, but I think it's such an interesting process, and it's for me, one of the most actory films of this year of what they had to take on. It's a biopic, so they had to be, somewhat accurate to who you were playing. It's a biopic about somebody who's still alive. It's a biopic about somebody who was there on set. So there was a lot of hoops that they, had to jump through to create what you guys saw on screen. But first I want to start off with, what did you guys think when you read the script and what drew you to the role? Annie?
When I first got the script, I remember thinking that I was the only one that could play this part. Because I'm from East LA. I'm born and raised in the area that Richard and Judy were born and bred in. And I really understood the culture, the community, and their growth, from coming from hardships and pain to growing to believing that their community was worth something pouring into.
Yeah, for sure.
I had heard about the project, probably.
You knew the story.
I knew the story. I'd heard of them probably a few years prior to the project actually coming out. And I thought, man, whoever does this part's going to be super, super lucky and get a chance to tell a really amazing story. And then a couple years ago, and end of 2020, we had started it. The audition process was was long. But I got the audition and I started reading the script. I'm like, oh, this was written for me. Like I really felt like everything flowed easily out of my mouth. I didn't really have to, and everything was on the page. Like Linda's writing was incredible, and I knew it with Eva at the helm it was going to be amazing. So all I had to do was kind of put in my work and do my homework and do my auditions and just kind of just kill it and wait for these guys to catch up. Because they went through everybody in town, probably people from out of town too, because I know Carla Poole, the casting director, was, she
We
cast
wanted
a
to
white
look
net.
high and wide. I mean, we really cast a large net when we were casting, and that's what took so long. But I love, you guys had opposite approaches, because Annie, you're from this community, and you've said this many times, that's your aunt, that's your mom, that's you knew Judy, and Jesse's from Wyoming. And so you didn't have Richard's experience, no?
No, I mean I could relate to his experience, and I grew up without very much money in my family, and that's how they grew up. They grew up with having to figure it out. My parents would sell food to where my dad would be working with the constructioners, going to school, and that's how we did it too. Whatever we could do to make some money. So I know that process.
So talk about the audition process. Do you guys remember it? Did you block it out?
No, not at all. I love it. I love auditioning. I think it's very weird when actors don't, personally. Because I feel like it's the time that we get to play the most. You know what I mean? Nobody really knows what they want when you're going into the audition process, like casting directors, and that's my time to be let me show you what you want.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I get nervous. I used to get nervous when they wouldn't audition me. I'd be like, well, how do you know I'm good? How do I know you're gonna like what I'm gonna do? So I agree with you. So the process was long for you too.
Yeah,
we saw a lot of Annies. I mean, we saw a lot of Judys. Just one Annie.
Just one Annie. Rare, baby. Hey, you can clap for that. Yes, you can clap. Yes, I remember it started off with a self-tape, and I did it, and I sent it to my reps.
Oh, because it was COVID.
Because it was COVID, yeah. We were at the height of COVID. I sent it to my reps, and I'm so grateful for my team. She called me 30 minutes later and said, no, do it again. She's like, you're much better than this. And I was like, ooh, okay, challenge accepted. Went in, and I did it, and I rewatched the first tape and the second, and I was like, oh, she was so right. And then I remember I had the director's session with you. And you were like, how do I know you? Why do I know you? And I was like, I don't know, I was intensified. You're like, really? Because what you're doing here is much different than what I saw you do over there. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah. I loved Hentified, but you as well, like, Jesse being so different from Richard in life, you were completely different than that character. Your hair, your look, even though the writer was the same, Linda from Hentified wrote Flamin Hot. So I know Linda Eva Chavez. You brought a different energy, and I was like, wow, I've never seen you before. Like, and I meant that in a way of like, it was so refreshing because I'd never seen that from you before.
I love that. I mean, that's why I decided to be an actress, to be able to put on many different hats and shoes and faces of people from my beloved community and in communities that I'm not a part of. And I remember as we were going through the audition process up until we got to the director session and the screen testing with Jesse and the other people that were in it, I think Jesse had reached out to me and was like, so I know it's between us and a couple of people. Let's sit down. Let's figure it out. Let's play. So I went over to his house, and I remember I was nervous because I'm a big fan of Jesse Garcia's. Like, I've loved him since Quinceañera, and I've watched all of his work. And I remember thinking as a little girl, like, oh my God, I'm so in love with him. So to get the opportunity to work alongside him, or even in just the playing process, was a dream come true. And walked in, and the chemistry was immediate. I was like, I had known him my whole life. He made me lunch after we rehearsed, and once we locked in, I was like, I feel like this is it. I feel like we're gonna make a really beautiful film.
Yeah. And for you, Jesse, well, the Richards had a really hard audition process because we started with factory scenes, and whoever made it past that, I gave them the gangbanger scenes because that was like a different color. So he came back for that. And then the last, and the screen test, and the bar of like, could this actor kick into all those gears, was Judy scenes, right? Because that was like vulnerable. I knew the actors could show me, and so many people fell off. Like, they could do the tough shit. I'm tough, I can do cholo, I'll do cholo, and then I'll do blue collar worker. I do that every role, But you came, and Jesse was not the only one, because we had some amazing actors come in, but he was the one that was like, okay. You knew he had a lot of tools in his tool belt. He's like, you want this? Should I use this? Do I do this? Do I do this? But for you, was it frustrating? Was it like, what could you tell our fellow actors here about that process of the auditioning?
It was an interesting process. So I read the script and I felt like it was right for me, right? I felt like it was perfect for me. All I had to do was, again, wait for you guys to catch up and go through everybody and just make sure that, I know Carla Hull, and I kind of kept in touch with her. It's like, all right, so what are the notes? What could I be doing differently? And she's like, nothing. Like, you just keep doing that and keep going through things and listen to whatever Eva wants and keep going. And it was the same with Annie. I went from the self-tape, and my initial self-tape was great, but Carla gave us like, do it again, but like a little bit more edgy. I'm like, cool, no problem. Did that, then we had a meeting, a phone call, I think was it with you. You were working on something else, so we quick phone call, talked about it a little bit, then I think we did a producer session. She threw me a scene like last second, I hadn't even rehearsed it. She goes, cool, try this. And I'm like, that was a long speech, dude, it was like a big monologue. Did a couple times that, and then from there it went to probably another phone call, and then the screen test. And so Annie and I have known each other for a couple of years at that point, but really hadn't hung out. I just seen her at events, and I hit her up and said, hey, come, if you're, again, it's COVID, so whatever, who's ever comfortable, whatever. I said, come over, let's run the lines and hang out and just play with it, see what happens. So we did, and then the test kept getting delayed. So like, there's for one actor wasn't available during the testing, and then there's COVID, and then somebody got COVID right before
the screen test.
Right before one of the screen tests.
Whoever got that COVID, I think everything happens in God's perfect timing.
That's what I should say. Jesse, you're welcome. You had another week with the material.
More like another month.
Yeah, I was another we had to move it. Hold on. But then you were there in the room. And
then it was coming too. And like, I was ready. Like, I knew the things that I wanted to try, because I hadn't put those scenes up in front of anybody yet, because it was the scenes between Judy and Richard, and I was just having fun. Like, I I was prepared, and all this, the notes that Eva was throwing at me, and the things that I like to do to add a little spice at the end and kind of know. The thing is, for me, like, I've been doing this for a long time, 23 years at this point, 20 years up until the point we did the movie, and I love the technical aspect of all filmmaking, and knowing where the camera is, and knowing where the lights are, knowing where the actors are, blocking everything, and knowing what works, right? Adding a little spice at the end of a scene, just enough, and then getting the hell out of there.
Yeah, I do too. Some actors don't. Like, I like to explain, so we're in the kitchen, there's something burning, baby's crying, you know, you're fighting, she's gonna calm you down. Like, I like to explain those things because I feel like that context is important to what we need to see. And that's a completely different read than you sitting in a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, okay, the baby's crying, there's a knock at the door, the phone is ringing, something's about, that changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some actors who did come in don't want that information.
Give me all the information you got, and I'll take and leave whatever I feel like is appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, and then we went, I tested with everybody, and kind of, and you know, 10 weeks later, it felt like it wasn't. I got the call, and I couldn't have felt.
Well, I will say, you know, with Annie, like, I agree with you. Auditioning is our job, right? You don't get paid. You don't become an actor because you get paid. You become an actor because you are an actor. And so auditioning is part of that process. And I like figuring it out. And I was always brazen in audition processes when they were like, "That was great, thank you." And I go, "So I got the part?" And they were like, you know, the words on back. I go, because if you need to see something else, tell me. I want to show you now. I will show you. Do you want me to cry? Do you want me to scream? Do you want me to be funny? Like, I can do everything, but you have to ask me for it, right? Like, I can't read your mind. And I feel like when I got this script, that was my superpower. It was like, I knew I could work with actors, right? I knew how to communicate. I knew this was going to be the easiest part of the job, of like, to make sure I could get out of you guys what I needed and what I knew you had. Because we don't get roles like this. Latinos do not get roles over 3 decades, you know, 3 different, you know, you guys played 3 different characters in one movie. You talk about it all the time about everything you've played before, prepared.
So I've been doing this for 23 years, and up until the point of the movie, I had played the comedy, the drama, the tough, the action, the tough, vulnerable, all in different movies and TV shows over 20 years. And this was the first time I got a chance to use everything. You know, I got the chance, and I have to give Eva credit too, because we had we cry a lot. We cry a lot. So the day before we started shooting, we had a rehearsal and kind of like everyone to get to know each other a little bit. And it was just her and I. At the end, I go, we trust each other. And I'm gonna cry again. And I need that. I need to be able to trust whoever I'm working with, especially the director. Because I don't always, and some people don't always, and it's to have a visionary like Eva, and to be able to her to trust me, and it was back and forth. We have to trust each other, and we did. And from then on, if I wanted to try stuff, she would go. And if she wanted me to do something, I go, I'll do whatever you want. Like, if there's something very specific, cool. If you want me to stand on one leg the whole scene, I'll do it.
And I think that's sometimes the problem. Actors feel like they're the most important part of filmmaking. And there's so many parts. So the camera, the lighting, the props, the blocking, the light, the story, the edit, right? I need you to be this way in this scene because later this will come after. You cannot peak right now and sometimes actors come in and they're not thinking of the big picture. They're thinking of me and my role, and I'm going to do it so great right now. And you're like, eh. And that happened with like you and I, no, Annie?
Yeah.
I mean, no, we didn't butt heads, but I was like, hey, she was like, oh, got it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, this was Annie's first film, you guys. I still refuse to believe that, because she was so amazing technically, like just being on a set, and she did a lot of work before this role, but like just like moving for the light, moving because the Steadicam was coming through. I'm gonna move forward. I'm gonna step back. Like technically, it's very hard to be on a set for the first time, and intimidating when you're against, a great actor, and then intimidating when there's a director going, oh, and so you were flawless. You were flawless.
I really did take this as a learning experience, and then I knew I was amongst giants. So I really did trust that if you're telling me something, I know it's only for the greater good of the whole project. And I do remember as we were going through, certain scenes, like Judy could have easily, in the wrong hands and with the wrong director, right, could have become very unlikable because she's riding Richard's ass the whole time. Yeah, come on, babe, we gotta. And there were certain moments where I would get frustrated with myself because I'm like, okay, what? Okay, how do I? And she pulled me aside. She's like, I think this you're not trying to bring him up in a way that's like, ay, Karina, no, you are his partner, you were his ride or die, you kind of have to smack him in the ass and get him going. And I'm like, okay, so there was a lot within this character that was challenging for me to find the levels, the levity, the levels, to deliver the message in a way that would resonate for Richard and for audiences, that we weren't just like, shut up, girl, he's trying his best.
You know what, we did cut a scene. One scene, the only thing that we cut in the movie was it felt like that. It felt like, and I was like, if you're looking at, because the other thing that Jesse does is he makes you fall in love with him from the minute he's on screen. You are on his side. You're like, great, I'm on this journey with you. I want you to win. And that is hard, because it's not like ability. It is relatability. I've been there. I get what you're trying to do. So I felt like the audience was always going to be on Richard's side because of Jesse's performance. And I agree, Annie had the hardest job of the movie, which was balancing that. I got you, but not being passive and being like, good job, honey. She had to like smack him in the head so many times and going, wake the fuck up. What's wrong with you? So there was one scene too many that we go, okay, yeah, that would have led to us not liking Judy, because she's like, what are you doing? And all you see him is like trying for his family, like all I'm doing this is for my family. And you balance that so well, and you found those levels. And again, 3 different decades. You played, almost 4 different people, because you had the really young Cholares too. I mean, the young Judy as a kid. So I thought I'm so happy you mentioned that, because I think people could easily go like, well, that was so well written. It wasn't. That was Annie going, okay, do I push the gas here? Do I let up on the gas? And that is hard to do.
Did you have, Devon asked me one time, he goes, how do you navigate jumping between, because on a day, like, we shot so fast. We shot a TV schedule, and even the studio goes like, you guys have to cut stuff because you're not gonna have time. Eva goes, nope, not cutting anything. We're gonna make it work. And that was one of the things too, like before we started shooting, we're gonna shoot fast. You gotta be ready every day, and you gotta be flexible, and we're gonna do things, we're gonna experiment, but we're gonna move. And we did, we moved fast. But we didn't even have long days. It was just
10-hour days.
10-hour days. We got it done very quickly.
But that's why I also, when we were in the audition process with actors, I was like really looking at the actors who were game. Like, I'm game. I'm with you. I'm in the trenches with you. You could prepare a monologue last night that we're shooting today, and I'm like, we're not doing it today because it's raining and there's lightning. We got to switch. Great. Jesse like, great. Gotta go, right? And then, okay, we're not in the 80s anymore. We gotta go back to the 90s wig. Jesse, great, let's go. And I needed that kind of spirit. People call it like an independent film spirit, but it's not. It's a gritty actor, like, you're there to create, So what am I creating today?
There was the scene where Richard confronts Facho, right? That scene right there, we reshot that. It was the day, just my side.
Yeah.
You can tell
because of weather and
angle
and lightning and the angle. It wasn't your performance. It was Jesse did an amazing job. Here's the real story. Jesse did an amazing job that day. Emilio, who plays his dad, could not stop crying on the other side on Jesse's coverage. So we're on Jesse, and Emilio's behind the camera going, ah! He goes, sorry, dude, go ahead. And Jesse's like, no, it's good. And then Jesse would like go into it again, and then Emilio's like, I'm sorry, can we cut? Like, for me, it was off camera. And Jesse's like, no problem. You were amazing with him that day. But remember, he couldn't hold it together.
No, it was very personal for him. Like, and he can tell the story on his own, and he wouldn't care if I told it. But it's a very personal thing for him. Like, what I can say is, like, he said that we had the conversation that he wished he could have had with his dad. So we had that conversation that day.
Right.
So the first day we did it, and he was a mess. And he didn't do anything.
So by the time we got to your stuff, it was like, we gotta hurry.
But Eva called me, was it that day or next day
No,
or
it was
something?
like 2 days.
2 days in, and she goes, man, she's scared to call me. She goes, I hate to ask you this, but we have an extra day, and if we could reshoot that scene, it'd be really great. She goes, I hope you don't kill me. And I go, no, let's go, whatever you want. What's wrong with it? There was nothing wrong, just you, it's just technical stuff. And
nothing wrong with his performance. It was like, I needed a better eyes, because that emotion, the camera angles didn't show what he was doing, and because of that, it was like, I just wanted him to have another shot at it, and then he blew it out of the water. That's one of my favorite scenes. And then we reshot a little bit of you too, and it's funny, you can't tell, but we used, with Annie, we used like one take from the first day, and then the next line is from the third day, and then the other line is from the first, like, we literally took these different performances from 2 days, and you can't even tell lighting or anything wise, but also, like, you guys just were locked into what that scene was for. Like, it was the biggest turning point in the movie, specifically for Judy. Like, Judy was finally like, all right, I hear you, let's go.
I mean, that's a good lesson to know, like, the technical aspect of, like, you don't necessarily have to be perfect with every take. Like, these are puzzle pieces. And that's the stuff that I've, over the years, have gotten good at. And, like, I mean, you can talk too about, I didn't finish my question earlier, but how Devon Franklin asked me one day, she goes, how do you jump back and forth between the decades? Is it tough? Because, we're changing the wigs, and the hair is different, it's a little different. Makeup, everything. Mustache, I had a prosthetic mustache, like I had the top half was mine, but the rest of it was prosthetic. And I play the relationship. I play the relationship and the situation of what we're in at the moment, because people change over time, but they don't change that much, and I think that is that with the same thing when you were changing decades?
Yeah, definitely. I think my favorite part about the whole process of embodying a character is getting into the hair, the makeup. I love, like, as a little girl.
Yeah, I want to talk about creating Judy and Richard.
That has always been my favorite part. I think that's part of the reason why I also love auditioning. Like, when I read a breakdown, I'm like, I get to do it all. I get to figure out, like, okay, she comes from this background, she looks like this, okay, so what I put on. So as we were creating Judy,
we were testing,
and we were testing, we did a lot of, we took a lot of camera tests, and it was really fun to co-create with hair and makeup, with wardrobe, with styling, with everyone, and they were so collaborative. Especially because I know the community, so I understood, like, that's my Thea right there in the 90s, like the chola right there with the little freaking finger waves blown out. I'm like, that's exactly how she would have worn her hair. Her name was Joanne. Like, super chola, like, then you got, the 80s, her curly wig. When I showed my mom, she's like, me, oh my God, that was my hair. And I'm like, I know, I look exactly
the J.C. Penney perm.
The J.C. Penney perm, right? Oh my God, I think they'll love that one. He kept coming up to me, he's like, yeah, I used to date girls like you. We got it right, you know what I mean? But that's always been my favorite part of the process, because I feel like once I put that costume on, that armor, that, just like when we go out, right? You put your armor on, you put your shoes on, your favorite pair of heels, your hat, your glasses, you feel like you. Something about it drops you in immediately to that center of the character. And then you're, as Judy, whatever decade Judy's in at that moment, and then she sees Richard in that same decade, it's easy to play, "Aye, babe, shut up, stupid." So, when they're older, like, okay, no, we're gonna be more refined, babe. We gotta do it's easier to help you move through and maneuver through the character.
Yeah. And for you, Jesse, we had a harder time nailing the looks for you, because the real Richard and Judy gave us so many photos, which is so helpful. But like, we had a bump in the hair department. We couldn't get that right, and I could see the frustration of you, because you're like, I'm not the expertise, but I know this isn't it.
Yeah, I mean, we changed key hair first day. Yeah. So Teresa Hill came in and just killed it. She came in.
Teresa Hill did meeting the Ricardos with Aaron Sorkin, and she did lessons in chemistry, which she's nominated right now. She was amazing. She came in last minute.
She brought in her own wigs, like she had some.
Yeah, she worked with you, and you go, this is.
Yeah, because she kept the first one. I mean, no beef with her, but she kept trying to just style it one way. I'm like, there's no cut, there's no nothing. I'm like, and at one point it's like, oh, we're just gonna do this for one look and use your hair for the rest of it. I'm like, oh no, we need to figure this out. And I'm like, I'm trying. But for me, it was like being patient to see what would happen. But it's just like, it just ended up being combs going through my hair for 4 hours.
But that is an interesting part of the process. Is like you want the department head's genius, so you gotta kind of sit back and go, okay, let's see what they can do. And then when it reaches a point of like, okay, this isn't, I'm gonna have to take charge. There is a moment that you go, you either click and you go, yes, this is it, or this isn't working. But you guys finally landed somewhere that was amazing.
Yeah.
I love the looks in the movies for you.
I didn't have I had maybe 1 day off, a day and a half off the whole shoot. Because if we weren't rehearsing on our own during the weekend, I was doing hair and wig stuff and still testing throughout it because it's stuff that we hadn't shot yet. But I met Richard a week before we went out to where did we shoot? Albuquerque. And we just...
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you guys that. What was the moment like when you sat and talked to the real Richard and Judy, and what did you take from that conversation into the character?
Richard's funny, man. He's a quirky dude. He's funny. He's smart. You know, what's he say? Like what?
I'm the most smartest uneducated vato you'll ever meet.
Yeah, smartest uneducated vato you'll ever meet. Because he didn't go to traditional school, but he's street smart. He's really smart, like an engineer mind. So when I drove out to meet him and his family at his house, he's a little shorter than me, but he was still like, kind of like a little bit of, all right, let's see who this fool is, because he didn't really know who I was. He had probably had other ideas of who he wanted Richard to be.
Yeah.
But I got it.
He's like, Brad Pitt. Yeah. Just as you see it.
So we sat down for a couple hours. In the first hour, we kind of chatted about this and that. And then the second hour, I go, all right, cool, let's talk about the movie. And the first thing I said to him is like, listen, man, I'm not going to be doing an imitation of you. So I'm not going to mimic your hand gestures, your walk, your accent. I'm going to be doing my version of your story to the best of my ability with honor and respect. And he kind of looked at me and goes, oh, okay. So he was a little thrown off, and I could tell, but I knew he was going to be okay. So my main purpose of meeting them was to make them feel comfortable that we were going to do them right. And they figured out we were going to take care of them the day that we shot the scene with me and Judy in the car, and the car's stolen, this and that. Her and I are, she's pregnant, all the things, and her and I are improvising, and she's hitting me, and blah, 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 blah. They call cut, and Richard and Judy and the family were at Video Village watching the monitors, and we walk around, and everybody's crying, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And Judy's like, that's exactly what I said, and I actually hit him right there when the cop came up, and that's what he said, and everyone's crying, and so we're all hugging each other, and Richard hugs me with teary eyes, and he goes, okay, I get it now. I get what you guys are doing.
Yeah. You had a similar emotional meeting with the real Judy, who's a badass.
Oh, she's such a badass. I took her to breakfast because I just wanted to have her by herself, because there's not really much about her online at all. Like, she's a very private woman. Mm-hmm. And when I sat her down, like, she was kind of shaking, and we were talking, and I was like, are you okay? She's like, sweetheart, I'm just really nervous. I'm like, why are you nervous? She's like, you know, I read the last script, and everything that they're putting in there about, our past, that's, pretty difficultly colored. Like, I worked really, really hard to be the woman that you see before you today, to absolve that past. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I could see her getting emotional, and I was like, I think that what you're missing is how important that is, because it informs how you've become who you've become today. Mm-hmm. Our point of putting this in is not to smear anything, to damage, not at all, but to to show that there are so many different possibilities, and it's not always about where we come from, but what the desire we have in our heart to become. And that's what you did. You shifted your whole family lineage and a culture because of it. Like, how powerful that is. I grew up in a garage with my mom. And I'm here before you guys today, and we own a house in Whittier.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, it's all like, there's so many different possibilities. And so, you know, we sat down, we talked for a little bit, and I reminded her that I know who she is, that I know where she comes from, and that I am her. And that I was going to do my best, my very best, to make her proud and make her family proud.
Yeah. Well, they were so proud when Richard and Judy saw the film. Judy's like, yeah, that's right, that's how important I was. But Richard too, but, you know, we said this before, it was a very fast shoot. We shot 30 days to do this movie, 108 sets, 4 decades really, because of young Richard and young Judy in elementary, and these guys did an amazing job just jumping through all of that. We had an amazing DP who obviously shot the movie so beautifully, but you talked a little bit about the mental process on set, but like, what was probably the most difficult part of the whole journey of Flamin Hot for y'all? Or most rewarding? Maybe I should go positive.
I got to, by the time the last day, by the time we wrapped, I knew I emptied my tank. I knew that I got to do everything I wanted to do. I came in with ideas, something to add, different jokes, improvisations. Eva and I rewrote every day.
Yeah.
We rewrote it.
But also, you and Dennis Haysbert rewrote. You and Matt Walsh rewrote.
Yeah.
You and, you know, it also
Everybody.
depends
Annie
who
and I.
you're with. Yeah, you and Annie were like, could we do this? We're like, yes, that makes it better. I always say, like, for me, my job is to have a vision, but how we go about executing it, I'm like, best idea wins. Let's go. What you got? What you got? I'm not like married to like, it's my way, but I am married to my vision, right? Like, I had a very clear vision of what the movie should be. But same thing with any department head and my DP, like, how do you want to get there? But yeah, you like, it wasn't just with us. It was like, once it was Dennis Haysbert, you're like, oh shit. And then when you guys met, it was like, you guys were brothers.
Yeah.
Like Julius and Richard was.
Yeah.
His real name was Julius.
I mean, I like to kind of like, I improvise a lot when it's appropriate, but I like to kind of mess with everybody to see what happens and do jokes, and a lot of the things made it in. Like
Eric, Mark.
Yeah.
Eric did a lot of
I mean, Eric and I did a lot of stuff, and I
the
would,
other janitor.
the candle scene where I'm trying to blow stuff out, I was doing it to try to make her laugh. And it made it, so it was like a lot of those fun things that we got to do and improvise and kind of have the freedom to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's very unique.
Also, Anna, you did a lot of improvisation because you had the kids.
Mm.
I remember that baby would not stop crying, which was amazing in that scene. I was like, the mom was like, should we step in? And I was like, if you don't mind, it's kind of great. As long as, is the baby safe? And she goes, yeah, she's just gonna whine. And I was like, Annie, you good? And Annie's with the baby flipping the tortilla. She's like, let's go. That was real. No?
Yeah.
What did you take away from this experience?
Oh my gosh, it was a masterclass. I mean, like you said, this is my first studio feature, so I just remember telling myself that I do not have to know everything to trust the people that are meant to run these things, to learn, to be a student, but with what I do know, be firm and then don't be afraid to share that.
Yeah.
But I this whole process was rewarding and terrifying all at once because I knew what it meant to community and to, what is that? Got it. Just your heartbeat. It's your heart. I love that. It's beating for me. No, it was rewarding and terrifying all at the same time. And I remember when I left, I was so sad because you guys still had, I think, like 12 more days of shooting.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to miss it. Like, we were all, like, on days that I wasn't shooting, I would show up to set just to learn.
Yeah.
Like, just to watch.
No, you're like, what you guys doing without me? We're in the factory now, there's no Judy in the factory.
Like, oh really? She doesn't like to show.
And he's like, maybe you should bring some lunch or something. She just wanted to stay another week while we were shooting.
You don't have to shoot it. I can just come bring lunch. No, okay. No, I loved it. It was one of the most terrifying and beautiful experiences of my life, and it really solidified for me why I do this and why I want to continue to do this, and this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my
I
life.
hope you continue to do this because you are mesmerizing on screen. You are really a talent.
What was it like working with Eva?
Gosh. She's okay. Eva, everything that you said about giving context, how some actors don't like it, I loved it. I need it. I love how specific you were. Right before I went, I was watching all these documentaries on film, and one of the documentaries I watched was a Spielberg documentary. And Spielberg is directing Liam Neeson in Schindler's List, but he's directing him on how to like pick up the cigar, smoke the cigar, put it down, blow it out. And Neeson is like, I'm Liam Neeson. Like, I know how to fucking smoke a cigar. And Spielberg goes, for sure, you are Liam Neeson. I'm the conductor in your first chair. First chair can blow the conductor out of the water, but it's first chair's job to make it look like it's first chair's choice. So when I heard that, and I went in and I knew how specific Eva's vision was, I understand film like music because I grew up singing and in music a lot. So I understand like there's different rhythmic patterns, different things. Like multicam, right? You have setup, joke. Setup, like that's the thing. So when we were doing certain things and when I wasn't understanding a certain moment because the ego of the actor is like, but I want this moment to mean this. She'd go, okay, I hear you. So we did this in this scene, we did this in this scene. I need you to reel it in because in this scene it needs to be this. I need you to have it a little bit more grounded. You're not pushing him, you need to have more empathy. And I remember that note, I'm like, how great. I'm gonna make this beautiful, brilliant woman's note feel like it came from my loins.
Yeah.
Like how cool that is to be able to do that. I think most actors don't realize like that's the gift that we get.
Yeah.
To be able to take someone else's note and vision and make it seem like it was ours to begin with.
Make it feel like your idea.
Yeah.
Every idea I had for Jesse was my idea. And
Yeah,
he made it
look
his
at what
idea.
you did.
That was Jesse and I's long running joke. Because he had this, the rag in your pocket. Yeah. And I go, oh, I love the rag in your pocket. I'm glad you did that. I wanted that. And he goes, no, I decided that. And I go, no, I decided that. and then we always joke, but like Jesse had amazing ideas. Things that I would never have thought of. And Jesse's like, oh, I just felt like, also because he had a lot more information. You had even had way more information than I did about Richard. How he had a gun in his locker.
He used to pack. He used to carry 22 with him to work at one point. Judy goes, "Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah,
We're
maybe don't do that.
We're trying to be different people. You know, you can't be packing at work anymore.
Yeah.
Because they grew up hard, man. These guys were were gangsters, you know.
But you had great ideas, and I think you're right. We had a great working relationship because you're like.
Her and I, we could I say we're cosmic soulmates. I don't know how else to say it. Whatever it is, we've known each other in past lives.
Yeah, we finished each other's
Sandwiches.
Yeah.
Salads.
Finish each other's barbecue.
Burritos.
The thing I reference is like the factory is big. They built the factory, so from
That
scratch.
factory we built from zero.
Yeah.
Zero. It was an empty room.
But we call cut, and Eva would be way on the other side because we have a crane inside and this and that. And I would look at her and I go, and she'd go, okay, cool, let's do it again. Because I knew what she was gonna say, and I knew what I had.
And he goes, yeah,
Yep.
I know. I was like,
Yeah.
let's not do it like that.
Yeah, well, whatever you just did, don't do that.
Yeah, that was great. Now let's not do that.
Yeah, we have that.
That was it. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I think it was a masterclass in acting. Because again, as I say, we don't get these roles. These roles are very rare that an actor gets to dive into something so juicy, and there's so much meat on this bone, and you guys knocked it out of the park. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for hearing your thoughts. That's it. Yes.